Here's our economic update for May 10th, 2026. Happy Mother's Day. So for our jobs numbers on May 6th, the ADP came out. We added 109,000 jobs in April. On May 8th, the BLS came out with plus 115,000 jobs in April. And where most of these jobs are coming from are effectively healthcare, followed by transportation, warehousing, retail, trade, and social assistance. If you think about the baby boomers, a lot of them are retiring every year right now, and a lot of them are going to need, say, additional health care over the coming years. So it makes sense that we start hiring more people. Same with social assistance and things like that. Our March and February numbers were also revised. Our March numbers were revised up to plus 185,000 jobs, while the February numbers were revised down by 23,000 jobs, down to a loss of 156,000 jobs. We currently sit at 4.3% unemployment. This has been going up over the last couple of years. If you look at teen unemployment, we're at 14.4%, African Americans at 7.3%. The reason why I'm naming these two specifically is they tend to go up before there's actually widespread issues throughout the economy, so it's kind of like a canary in a coal mine. We do have 7.4 million unemployed people. Do realize that this doesn't count everybody that doesn't have a job. This is only people that have actively looked for a job. If you haven't looked for a job in over a month, you don't get counted in this. If you're underemployed, you're not counted in this, that sort of thing. So I do like to look at the labor force participation rate from time to time, and this has been going down over the last year or so. On May 5th, we had our JOLTS report. We're at 6.9 million open jobs. And if you look at, we have 7.4 million people actively looking for jobs. That's 1.1 roughly unemployed people per open job. So there's not enough jobs, even if everybody had the right skill set and was at the right location for that job. So if you've been looking for a job over the last couple of months and you're finding difficulty in that or ease, please leave it in the comments below. Please make sure to note what industry are you looking in. For our inflation numbers, on April 10th, we have our consumer price index up 3.3%. This is up significantly. Consumer price index core is when you remove basically food and energy, the things that are most volatile. Right now, energy prices or fuel prices are what's really driving a lot of the inflation. On April 14th, the producer's price index went up 4% and core went up 3.6%. Generally, the producers will start seeing an increase in their, basically prices, and then they have to pass that along to the customer. On April 30th, we had our personal consumption expenditures. That was 3.5%, and our personal consumption expenditures minus food and energy core is 3.2%. All of these are moving basically in the wrong direction. We want a target of about 2% inflation for the Fed dual mandate, and we want to have maximum employment. So if you have rising unemployment, but you also have rising inflation, the Fed's going to have to decide which one's more of a risk. Do we want inflation to run hot, or do we want to basically have a bunch of people out of work? So they have to make that choice. A lot of this, like I said, is from fuel prices. We'll get to that a little bit later. The Fed had their FOMC meeting. They held interest rates at 3.5 to 3.75%. Basically, they're just waiting around. This is Jerome Powell's last meeting. We're going to have a change of the Fed chair. But even after we have the Fed chair change, you still have all the voting members. It's not the Fed chair that makes the decision. What they did note is that the economic activity expanded at a solid pace. However, jobs remain low. Unemployment has changed little over the last couple of months, but has changed over the last couple of years. Inflation remains elevated, and they did cite that increase in fuel prices is really driving a significant portion of the inflation. Let's talk about consumers. So on May 8th, survey of consumers. So our index of consumer sentiment down 3.2% month over month, down 7.7% year over year. Current economic conditions down 9% month over month, down 18.8% year over year. Index of consumer expectations, however, up plus 0.8% month over month, plus 1.3% year over year. They also had an interesting chart here. Those who hold stocks are less impacted by increased prices compared to those without assets. To me, that's kind of throughout history, if you own things that produce income, you tend to weather the storm a little bit better than those that don't have any savings or assets that appreciate over time. For May 7th, there is a survey of consumer expectation. Consumers believe that there will be an increased inflation over the next year, about 3.6%. They believe that unemployment will be higher a year from now, that they'll have less access to credit. But good news is there are lower odds of missing a payment over the next couple of months. It's one of the lowest readings in a couple of years. Gross domestic product, GDP, for first quarter 2026, our first reading is plus 2.0%. So that's good, at least it's positive. Second quarter 2026, the GDP estimate is plus 3.7%. If that's real, it's going to be a strong number. We'll see how this plays out. If oil prices stay high, that might drag that down a bit. For manufacturing, May 1st, we have the ISM report. The economy is growing for the 18th month in a row, while manufacturing is still growing for the 4th month in a row. The two negatives I saw in this report were basically prices are increasing faster, and effectively they're not adding jobs. So employment is still contracting, and it's contracting faster than it was. For our LEIs on April 30th, our leading economic index was negative, but not quite enough to signal a recession. So negative is bad, but not bad enough to really be a serious signal or warning of a recession. The coincident economic index remained unchanged over the last 2 months. That kind of concerns me because what you tend to see is this goes up and then you basically flatline like it is now, and then it could go up, but it could also dip down. So think of a roller coaster. You kind of like go up, and as you reach the top, you're kind of like leveling out. You could go further up, but if it's leveling out, if you're not growing, it tends to go down. So we'll see how that goes over the next couple of months. For the LEI, what's dragging on this is consumer expectation, a lack of new orders, and a lack of building permits over the last 6 months. The concerns I have at the moment, basically, we have a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. It's Middle East. It's about 20% of the world's oil. Whether we have a deal or no deal between Iran and the United States and Israel, the infrastructure has already been destroyed. So if that's damaged, to get new equipment in, you have to basically design it, get welders, build the equipment. Then you have to ship the equipment, install the equipment, get it up and running, that sort of thing. So it's going to take a while before you can get refineries back online if they've been impacted by the conflict. So let's think about this. If you take 1/5 or 20% of the world's oil supply away, that's going to impact the fuel prices. So your gas, jet fuel, diesel, heavy oil, that sort of thing is going to go up. But a lot of people might not know that fertilizers are also impacted this because we do use a lot of the components from the oil to build a lot of the fertilizers, which go into growing corn and other crops. So you're going to see gas prices go up. If you've seen Spirit Airlines went out of business because jet fuel went up. There are shortages of jet fuel in Europe and Asia. Asia is most impacted by Iranian oil and some of the Middle Eastern oil, but also Europe. And then diesel is going to impact your trucking, your trains, and your farming. Heavy oil is going to be your ships for transit across the ocean. So let's talk about fertilizer for a second. So do realize that fertilizer is used in different ways for different crops. So if you're talking about corn, corn is going to require a lot of nitrogen and it's going to require a lot of fertilizer. So you may see that less people will grow corn and they may switch to a crop that fixes nitrogen, such as like some type of legume or bean or soybean. Maybe they start, growing hay or something else that they don't need as much fertilizer, because about 70% of farmers right now in the U.S. is the number I've heard that can't afford all the fertilizer that they would like to have purchased, but they can't at the current prices. And the diesel prices are also causing issues because you have to, sow the fields and stuff like that. So if you have less corn, you're going to expect less animal feed. We also have drought in the Midwest. So then you don't have the ability to just graze as easily on pastures that are out there. We have some of the lowest beef herds that we've had since the 1950s. So I do expect higher beef, potentially higher pork prices over the coming year. We'll see how that goes. Again, more beans, soy, hay, because no fertilizer will be needed for those. So the prices of, say, soy, if you have an overproduction of soy, the prices would go down most likely. But then prices of corn and things that rely off corn, like some of the animals eat, like a feed corn, those prices will probably go up as there's a short supply of the corn. That's what I'm expecting. We'll see how this works out. So with all this information, what am I doing? Well, I already paid off my high interest debt. I don't really have debt, so that was number one. The other one is have an emergency fund. So have an emergency fund of more than 6 months, because the people that are unemployed, a quarter of those people have been unemployed for more than 6 months. So it just gives you some time to think and look for another position. The next thing I'm going to do is ask myself, is there anything I need to have, like a major purchase or money over the next 5 years? That money, I don't really want to put it in the stock market. I'm going to put that into high yield CDs or high yield savings, something that's FDIC. Any money I don't need for at least 5 years, that's where I'm using dollar cost averaging. Every time I get paid, I put a bit of money away and invest that into mostly, say, 70-80% the S&P 500, 10 to 20% in the total international funds, and then about 0 to 10%, closer to 10% right now, into long-term bonds. And the reason for the bonds is if interest rates go down on the long end, effectively bond value goes up. So it's a little counterintuitive, but that's the way it works. I don't really want to hold bonds when interest rates go up. I want to hold bonds when interest rates go down. I have a video explaining that in a bit more detail. So thank you for watching. If you'd like to learn more about how to make more money, how to save, how to invest, how to be an entrepreneur, this is a channel for you. I cover all of those topics. So since you watched to the end, I'll explain my eye. So if you notice, it's all kind of swollen. So effectively, I got a little infection around my eye. Basically, I have some antibiotics that'll go away. But what do you think I look like? All right, well, thank you for watching. Please subscribe and have a great day.